How you doing? This is Chris with Chris's Comments, show about common sense on common ground no matter what the subject. Today's subject, abortion. Turns out a Mississippi court hearing is going to be taking place in the Supreme Court concerning abortion. They're trying to outlaw it completely, to ban abortions after 15 weeks. And of course, they've got it all. They've got it to where almost the entire state has been outlawing abortion clinics, and it's just one out of quite a few states. I think 32 that are this close to being successful at it. Now, I made a comment about this in one of my earlier comments. I really don't remember what it's titled. I know abortion was thrown in the mix. So I'm not really sure which video it was, but I stand by it. I stand by it today that abortions should still be legal, mostly because it was a Christian, the Christian organization that used to permit it, and that they were for legitimate reasons, like for health reasons. And that it would just be torturous to bring a child in the world if that were the case. If the baby's life is in danger, if the woman's life is in danger, or if something has happened to where both of their lives are in danger, then yeah, abortion should be legal. I've known quite a few people that have gone through this situation and have had to face it. I'm not going to throw their names out there. It's none of your damn business. But I can testify that I have, heard this testimonies to people that I actually know firsthand. So, where does this come from? Everybody's like, well, the church says now this is it. This is the way it is, and all this other stuff. And what are you talking about? Permitted by the church. There's tons of people that don't understand this, so I'm going to fill it in for you. 1917, and I'm going to use my church, the Catholic Church, as evidence. You guys use your own churches too when you're backing this up or whatever. But in 1917, my church, the Catholic Church, had this code of canon, which is basically a comprehensive codification of laws in the Latin Church. It opposed about all forms of abortion. However, it did recognize as morally legitimate acts in which indirectly resulted, an abortion indirectly resulted in the death of a fetus in a cancerous womb. Now, obviously, in 1917, the medical field wasn't as strong as it was, but there was a medical field, and the Catholic Church paid attention to that. They paid attention to how these things could happen. And so, using the responsibilities of followers of God, having to make having a long extent of experience of making life and death choices, it was permissible. It was permissible to save the womb, the woman carrying the womb that could give birth to another child, especially if this was a bad one, if it was going to do more harm than good. Which, to be honest, this was also one of the things that backed it up, medically speaking anyway. Medically speaking, through religious rights, through religious common sense. You take it a little step back into 1869, where this Dominican friar, Thomas Aquinas, reiterated the apostles' views of successful souls when the limitation of automatic excommunication to abortion of a formed fetus was removed. Okay, now a change that has been interpreted to this day as birth starting at conception. That's the movement of ensoulment. The birth of conception. Birth starts at consumption. This is where Christians today get that BS. And I could call it BS because this is technically not what the Christians were believing in, especially since it also slightly veered off misinterpretation of Aristotle's views. The Aristotle view of an abortion before ensoulment was not viewed as a homicide by Christians. Why? Well, because ensoulment was a fetus that does not have a soul until quickening. Therefore, an abortion is not murder. The quickening, for those of you who don't know, in pregnancy terms, is the movement in pregnancy when the pregnant woman starts to feel her baby's movements in her uterus. Okay? So, weeks of time, 15 weeks aside, 2 months aside, 15 weeks aside. To be honest, the quickening happens when it happens, and the woman is the one that's to let you know when that takes place, obviously, because of the fact. Now, these days we do have machinery that can, that could show it and reveal it and all this other stuff. But, I'm good enough with taking the woman's word for it. The Aristotle views were from the 4th and 5th centuries. Okay? 4th and 5th century AD. Christians did not see abortion as murder. However, up until 1917, they did recognize it when there was complications to the birth in their womb. Now, in the earlier video, I did have the writings with me, but it concerns responsibilities of the Christians. It concerns the responsibilities of us. We have made the ground under our feet. We have made it His, so to say. If not, I think those might actually be the words. And I think this actually might be Jesus that had said this. This is our sole responsibility to handle. And it can't just be, not in this day and age, not with so many things willing to kill you, despite of however many things that can be used to save the woman's life or the fetus's life, if not both. Those things are exercised. Those things are put into good use. But there are still limitations. And when nature says you can't have this baby, when somebody tells this, when something says medically that this woman cannot have this baby, that this baby will not live if it continues in her womb, you gotta abort it. That's our responsibility. A woman's body may not be ready to give birth at the time. Plain and simple. So it is our responsibility to make sure that we have this available. Especially because if we don't, if we shut down everything, then comes the people that actually want to kill babies for fun, for pleasure, to weaken Christians. We all know about this stuff, human sacrifices and all that. I haven't looked it up directly, but we also know about aborted babies, killed babies that are already born because they appeared deformed, or some kind of lame-ass reason to declare that life invalid. Christianity moved it a step up. Christianity moved it a step up from those ancient times through medical purposes. As sure as no two women are alike. Some will all go through complications. If not all, will go through complications. Some being more dangerous than others when pregnant. It's now you bring back all of this common sense knowledge and stuff that the Christians permitted, and you take a look at the stuff now where Christian churches are now the ruling environment of our faith, and people like myself who are snuffed out because I still hang on to the old Christian ways instead of the modern day times where it's everybody demonize this and, hold it true here on earth so it'll be held true in heaven. It's concerning. It's very concerning to see my brethren go through this. To see my brethren, take these matters into their hands and rewrite the code of the Christian world, of the Christian faith. It's very concerning, and it's a little bit downheartening too, just simply because of the fact that we knew right from the get-go how to handle this. We knew right from the get-go how to handle abortions. And for some oddball reason, the responsibility to it has just been completely thrown out the window. Here in the second millennia, 2,000 years after Christ passed away, after his resurrection. 2,000 years, 2,020 years later, and we're still mucking it up. And it started as far back as the 4th century, later on into the 1800s, 1917, up until today. We knew how to handle this responsibility. We had a firm hold on it. Times have changed. More people have come up. So more possibilities of abortions. But when it's under our rule, they're legitimate reasons. They're not an abuse of a medical procedure that I'm told, that I'm led to believe was exercised quite a bit during my youth in the 70s and 80s. Me being born in the 70s and having my childhood throughout the 80s. These complaints towards the abortions, rose big time in an assumption or an accusation that this medical procedure was being taken advantage of in the form of a luxury. Let's say that's true. I mean, I haven't studied the statistics. All I've been hearing about is raging hype, hyped up rage. All I've been noticing, you try looking it up, and all you're doing is just looking up at what people are saying now. They're still where they stand, and you're following hype and rhetoric and all this stuff. But let's say I look it up, and let's say I find some stats on it that this was being abused, this medical procedure. Okay. So why are we shutting it down when we should be doing something to stop the abusers? This procedure saves lives. What are we doing? What are we doing demonizing it? Because some who might have been anti-Christ used the same procedure? That's one way of looking at it. Of course, the flip side to that is that there's less antichrist being born. But, that aside, the medical procedure has saved lives. It's kept people from dying. It's kept people from dying, and has had women with their womb given a second chance in bringing life into this world. Christian lives. I don't see how it becomes unimportant simply because one time or however many times a woman had to go through that procedure in order to bring more life into the world. Because remember, not all women are ready. Not all women are biologically ready. Some actually have to wait until, some actually don't know this until their biological clock, they can actually feel that biological clock ticking. This is their words. This is their testimony. I'm not making any of this up. This is coming from them. Christian women. Christians. This banning abortions after 15 weeks thing. I don't know about that. 15 weeks being just over a quarter of a year. You know, sometimes women don't get the knowledge that they're pregnant, until around that time. So that's cutting it pretty short. 12 weeks would be, now 12 weeks would say that they're intentionally being douchebags, or 6 weeks. I heard one of these courts try to ban abortion after 6 weeks, which is just, that's just incredible. That's just incredibly, asinine there. That's a total douchebag of an organization that's trying to make that law. And I think it's here in Texas too, to top it all off, where they tried to make it outlawed after 6 weeks. So it's total douchebags. And of course big douchebags would be in the biggest state ever, my state, so but yeah, this is the thing. We've got a banning of abortion, which shouldn't even be permitted. I mean, if they want to talk about the 15 weeks, present some facts. Because originally, when we started out as this, running off of an Aristotle's views. No, Aristotle. I'm sorry. When we were going off of an Aristotle view, this thing was believed to be not murder if it had happened before the quickening. Again, the quickening being the moment when a pregnant woman starts to feel the baby moving inside her uterus. Okay, once she starts feeling the baby's movements, then there's no going back. You have to give birth to the baby, or at least try to. Unless of course, referring back to the 1917 Code of Canon, where it recognizes the moral legitimate acts which indirectly result in the death of the fetus in a cancerous womb, so to say. I think these days we can certainly cancel out cancer, but definitely a problem in the plumbing. Ew, if I could get away with saying that. Sorry about that. But as rude as that sounds, it makes sense. Unless it's a medical emergency, to dumb it down, unless it's a medical emergency, there's no going back once you feel that baby moving in your womb. Okay? Unless it's an emergency, there's no going back once you feel the quickening. That is very reasonable. That is very responsible. That is what mankind and society ran to the church to begin with. Not any of this demonizing bullcrap that's going on right now. Demonizing women, demonizing pro-choice, demonizing both women who are pro-choicers. I mean, for crying out loud. We used to be on top of this. Our faith used to be on top of this. It was reasonable, it was responsible, and it was something that made the world turn. It was an act, and it was something that it was based off of the God-given gifts that put us here. It was something that we were put on this earth to go through these motions, to go through these responsibilities, to be God-like, to where God will take us in. That's what He put us up here for. That's what He put us in this environment for, in this, if I can get away with saying, this realm. The terrestrial realm. That's what we're here for. So I hope the people in charge can listen to the people who are making their case and come to their senses. And if they have to, get together with the church, review it with their church, and look up the history and the reasonings to it. And let's put some responsibility and some reasoning and pride back into our faith, especially for today's times, where people, there's a lot of people that hate my faith, and I understand, but I'm not happy about that. This babbling bullcrap, demonizing in the name of the church, in the name of Christ, in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's not helping. That's not helping. I understand their anger towards my faith, and the people that are running my faith right now, and the organizations, which is one of the reasons why I usually don't go to church, because after all, it is more and more just some organization, just some group in the name of my faith. This issue right now, this subject right now, is proof of that. And it's just saddening. Okay, I'm on my last 10 seconds, so y'all take care. Y'all take it easy. That's Chris's comments. Y'all have a good